Hi guys, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery, and I'm located in Van.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Highland Heights, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
I don't know that. We're live.
That was something I completely made up.
Okay. I was like, you had a little bit of confidence there, like it was something that.
It's kind of like how some people have confidence in their pots and they don't make good pots, but they fake it till they make it.
Why are we hating on people this early?
No, we were just talking about that, and that is an exact representation. And I did a nice little jingle before we started, and he was like, "Wow, I don't know that. What show's that from?" And I'm like, "It's not."
I just made that up.
Anyway, hello, Ryan.
Hello.
Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I am. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what's new. When did we talk last? Last week when I was at Isaac's?
We talked with Isaac and Heidi.
About a week ago, yeah.
On Monday.
I am back. In the studio.
In his
back
puffy
home.
vest.
This is a new vest. This is a birthday vest.
Oh, is that the vest that you were like, Deech?
I didn't share it. Yeah, this is my new burnt orange. I have another burnt orange vest, but it's too small. It's like one that is like up just above the bottom of my stomach. So it's a little too small. I had to reach up here to get my hands in the pockets.
Yeah.
When I got to reach up at the top of my rib cage to get my hands in the pockets, it's a little too small. This one's a medium, though. This one fits better.
Yeah.
This was on my list of requests for my birthday. I feel like I talked about that.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
We did. I appreciate the fact that both of you, like you and me, are kind of going through, like, not a change, but an evolution of clothing.
I just like find something that I like, and I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna like wear this
puffy vest.
Vest it up. Yeah, I got two vests. You'd think I had like a whole closet full, but I don't.
No. I know.
Yeah, so new vest, birthday vest. Thank you, Deech and Carlos. We tried out the new rum as well. We got the Jamaican rum. It's Smith & Cross Jamaican rum. We had it with the Mai Tai that we had last night. It was good. I mean, it's mixed with so many other things that it's hard to tell, like, what's the difference in this one versus another Jamaican rum. But pretty good. And the other thing that I got a few other things, but the Pulp Fiction vinyl soundtrack. I did not listen to that yet, but...
Just so you guys know, Ryan's birthday was on 4/20.
Yeah, this past weekend. So.
This past weekend. Oh, I have a friend whose friends had kids this past weekend on 4/20.
Kids? So they had twins?
Oh, no, just one kid. Had a kid on 4/20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My mom was sharing with me, so the day I was born on 4/20, the day of Thunder Over Louisville, which is like, it's like the huge fireworks show that happens for the Kentucky Derby Festival, and apparently it was the very first one that happened. Y'all can look that up if you want. It's just a huge fireworks show. They have festivities all day, and they have, I don't know what it was back in '91, but they have air shows where they have the planes flying, and they have kind of like a carnival, sort of like there's food and vendors and different activities going on throughout the day. So apparently that was the very first one, and my mom was telling me that I was born downtown at the hospital there, and my dad was like rushing to get out as quickly as possible before Thunder was over, so that traffic, they didn't have to wait in traffic. So that was a pretty funny.
That's interesting.
Oh, she said today is Thunder over Louisville. So this year it actually fell on Thunder over Louisville again. So it took
33 years.
I don't. I don't. There had to have been another one on April 20th before between now and then. I would think. She said, "Today's Thunder over Louisville, same as the day you were born. It brings me back fond memories of having you that morning at Norton Hospital downtown and watching all the festivities and fireworks on TV in the room with you and your dad. As soon as they were over, Dad jumped in the car and headed home to beat all the traffic.
That is
The traffic
so
jam
funny.
was a total nightmare that we watched on the news program that night, and it took people hours upon hours to get home." If that's not classic Carl
Carl
Durbin,
and
I don't
Deech
know what is.
behavior. I don't know what is.
Carlos not wanting to deal with traffic and crowds. I don't think they've ever been to. I think that's the reason I've basically never been to Thunder with my family. Like, I went one time when I was in college, I think, but not dealing with crowds that size, which is another reason we've probably never been to the Derby or
Right.
a lot of big events that are thousands and thousands of people
That's so funny. Your dad.
because of traffic and crowds. So, yeah.
Well, happiest of birthdays. I already said happy birthday, but I'll say it again.
Thank you. I got so many messages from you putting a story out, and people were like, "A little bee told me that it was your birthday. Happy birthday."
I'm glad.
The one thing that, like, I don't want to say hate, but it feels like you have homework on your birthday when so many people message you. I'm like, why do I have homework? Why do I have to spend my day responding
I
to
would have
people thanking
responded
them
the
for
next
wishing me
day.
happy birthday? That's true, but
Yeah.
I don't want to have a list of homework to do the next day, and then
Maybe it's just
You know,
me
it's
like,
like-
giving you homework and laughing an evil laugh.
I mean, some of them are easy. You just heart them or say thanks, but
Yeah.
you get the text messages and the Facebook messages and the text and the Instagram and all that shit. Yeah, it's just a lot, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. We got dinner and we got I feel like we got drinks or something somewhere.
You went to the jazz. Did the jazz thing?
Oh yeah, the jazz bar downtown. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
Because Rachel had her Rachel started selling her like vintage stuff, so she sold at that the next day. So
Nice.
luckily, I didn't have to get up early and go to that because she was able to set up the day before. So I got to get there at like noon, which is good.
Nice.
Instead of 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. She goes with you. Why can't you go with her, Ryan?
That's true, but she said I didn't have to.
Yeah, and plus it was the day after your birthday. So.
Yeah, that probably factored in.
Probably. That's like,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And my birthday is,
a week from today, right?
I think so. Must be. Yep. Yeah.
Coming up.
And
Are you gonna still be in Utah for your birthday, or are you leaving?
I honestly don't know. It all depends on these stupid dominoes.
That's why I don't ask you very often, because I know it stresses you out to like, well, not stresses you out, but I feel like I'm not going to get an answer because you don't even know. You're probably going to know
the
2 or 3 days
plan-
before, and then you're going to be like, this is what I'm thinking.
Look, well, I do have a plan, and the plan is to leave. It would be cool if, my mom would really enjoy having me there for my birthday. So like, or I was planning on maybe driving for my birthday, and getting to Colorado that night. I would like to get to Colorado as soon as possible, but I'm literally like right in the middle of making dominoes. And so it really depends on these dominoes, because I realize that like I'm selling my little firebox and it's staying here. And so I won't have a kiln at my parents' house, which is like the first time in a long time that I haven't had a kiln. So
You got some friends there though that you could.
I do.
Fire
They're
at if
just
you had to.
They're just far. Yeah, like they're just an hour away. So
Oh, really?
yeah, and I plan on what I want to do is do like a sale on my birthday that's 34% off because I'm turning 34. And I'm just gonna put up everything that I have and see if I can just sell it, and then I asked Liz if I could package everything at her house or at her studio. So, and she said yes. And I was like, I will pay you. It's so hard to pack when you're like not in a space that's normal and you don't have boxes or anything like that. So, yeah.
It kind of made me think of for a second I was thinking Justin Rawshank's April Fool's sale where he does 50% off. I was thinking like 5/1 because it's May 1st. I was thinking like 51% off or something, but you don't. Yeah,
I think
that's
34%
is a little more favorable than 51.
It's still not favorable.
Yeah. It's still a lot off, but if it was like always the same thing like that every year, it's like 50% off on this date.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I went to California this last weekend to visit Jen because Jen's birthday is the day before your birthday. And she's been such a good friend to me. So I was like, I'm going to come down for your birthday. And we went to a soccer game and we went to a concert.
It's is that professional?
Yeah, we went to a professional women's soccer game. And Jen is like, okay, so she goes, oh, I have season tickets. And then Becca, being the person that I am, I'm like, great, season tickets. Like, I'm thinking baseball, I'm thinking football. When you have season tickets, it's like just 2 seats in the stand that you like sit in every time. And you don't have to like buy the tickets every time. And like the day of the game, oh, and before that, we went to Korean barbecue and did karaoke the night before that. Like, one of those room karaokes. And they got really drunk. I did not. But, so I was like, hey, so are we going to need to, like, buy dinner at the soccer game? Like, or...
I think they're called matches, by the way, but...
Soccer match? Or, like, are we going to get dinner on the way to the concert? Or what's the deal? And she's like... No. We'll get dinner there. And I was like, oh, good. So just like a hot dog or whatever. And she's like, they have food. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Because it's season tickets, it's provided with the tickets?
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, we have box seats. There's a buffet.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what? I'm sorry, what?
I wouldn't have eaten earlier today if I would have known that.
And she was like, yeah, there's like a buffet. There's always hot dogs. There's free drinks. There's free beer. There's free wine. There's free seltzers. Hard liquor you have to pay for it. There was snacks. There's candy. There's popcorn and cookies.
How early can we get there?
Yeah, right? And like you go into this secret entrance and like, not secret, but like, go up the
private entrance,
the elevator and like get a cool little wristband and all this shit. And I was like, and she goes, what were you expecting? And I was like, well, not this. I wasn't expecting this.
I was just expecting seats in the same spot in the stadium, and that's it.
And they were like padded and nice.
Yeah, that's bougie shit.
But you know, because it's like it's only the 3rd year of the Angel City Soccer Club. Anyway, football club, and so they're really reasonable, you know, like for season tickets. Like, you know, when I think of,
they're trying to get people to consistently build a fan base and
and like I think of season tickets for like, you know, you think of like the Seahawks and they're like $30,000 for like seats that are even close to the actual field.
Yeah. And you're only talking about like 8 games or 9 games.
And like baseball season tickets, which are ridiculously priced too, but you get a lot of games. And I'm like, oh, this is so reasonable. Like,
well, I'm sure how many
it's 13
matches do they have? 13 in a whole season at home? Okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah, and so then we went to an Al Stewart concert. Have you ever heard of Al Stewart?
No.
He sings The Year of the Cat.
I don't know what that is.
And so...
It sounds like an old guy.
He is old. He looks like Mr. Rogers. He is English. He wears a blue sweater. And he like tours around with this guy or with this band that's much younger than him.
He's Scottish.
Oh, he's Scottish.
British folk revival in the late 1960s and 1970s.
Yeah.
Well,
and he like knows all
in
these
the 60s
people, you know, like his producer was the same producer as the Beatles and stuff like that. So anyway, I went to his concert and it was like I've never in my life seen so many people over the age of 45 be just so excited.
Loving life,
Yeah. It was great. And the theater was amazing. I meant to send it to Rachel. I don't think I did, but yeah.
Which one? It wasn't in the Palladium or whatever, was it?
Oh.
That's in Los Angeles, I think.
Yeah.
Is it in L.A.?
It was, yeah, it was in Hollywood area. West Hollywood, I think.
It's called the Palladium or something.
Palladium? No. See.
That's what I thought, but I don't see his past shows on here, but few previous events.
I don't know. It was
There's one in Beverly Hills, California at the Saban Theater.
I think it might have been that one.
That was on the 21st of April.
Yeah, it was that one. And it was just like the roof was it was all like tin and like tin sculptures and stuff. I'll send you some pictures right now. But it was just very Baroque and very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So
yeah, I appreciate a good theater too.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Yeah, it was
Saban
absolutely gorgeous. So that was really exciting.
That looks pretty sweet. Yeah, I can't tell if that's gold or chrome kind of colored, but it's...
Yeah, they had chrome and gold.
Nice.
There was both. So it looked like
there
was like just a billion swords.
It just it looks kind of Art Deco.
Yeah.
With the archways and stuff.
Yes.
I guess it depends on the way the light's on it, but
it was so freaking cool. So
sweet.
That was really cool, and I feel like I had my birthday that weekend too because of all the things we did. So
sweet. I mean, it sounds like you were only there for 3 days or something, right?
I missed my flight getting there, so I had to go a day later. But yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Were you able to fly out of St. George?
I was.
So you didn't have to go all the way to Vegas? Okay.
Yeah. I flew from St. George to Phoenix to SNA, which is Santa Ana, and it cost me $84 to do a round trip.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it's dope.
That's pretty great, actually.
Yeah.
miss those deals.
Yeah, but American was having some issues with my travel ID, and so it was like a whole
Rachel
mess.
briefed me slightly about it,
but it's okay. It turned out for the better. So
yeah, better than having to drive. Was it 6 hours each way or something like that?
Yeah, you know, I figured out the flight was probably the same amount of time as.
Yeah, with the connections and all that.
But I don't know. It was kind of nice.
You couldn't have got there and back on $84 of gas.
I don't think so. Not with gas prices right now. No. Yeah, it's one tank of gas though. It's like 60, so it probably would have cost me 120. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, normally you can't even compare them, but.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
At that price.
For people not knowing what's happening is I have flight benefits through a friend. And so that means I pay for taxes on flights other than Alaska flights because he's a flight attendant on Alaska. And if you've been listening for a long time, you know who it is. But and if it's an Alaska flight, I fly for free. If it's not, then I pay the taxes. And like a regular flight out of St. George is like $600.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's not many flights going in and out of there.
There's 5.
And it's a tiny airport.
There's like 6 flights a day. And that's it.
It kind of felt that way a little bit when I was landing into Wichita.
Yeah.
Going to Isaacs. I think there's 12 gates in the whole airport.
So nice.
Tiny.
I love those.
I mean, it was nice not having to drive to his house. I was looking it up because I was like, okay, next time we go, I think Rachel would probably go with me. But splitting the drive wouldn't be as bad. It's like 13 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But splitting it with two of us, it's much more doable than.
Yeah.
And we could stop along the way. You know, it's on the way.
Yeah.
To St. Louis, so we can like stop in St. Louis or something like that and continue on.
Yeah, there's some good stops on the way for sure. Yeah.
But
fun stuff, man. We should probably talk about what we're at 20 minutes, so.
Yeah. Do you want to do a question, or do you want to talk about one of the folks that help support the podcast first?
Let's talk about one of the folks that help support the podcast.
Okay, so it is a new month, and
that means
we've got some stuff to talk about from Speedball. So I was talking to them recently, and I was like, we're like coming up on, what do you want us to talk about? We've been testing out a little bit of the new underglazes. And I was like, what do you think about us talking about, the new formulas? Because Erica was painting on a ton of them at NCECA.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the first time that I had actually seen the new formula in person. I've heard I think you had some of them. I've heard about other people that had some. And, we've normally put Darvan in our batches that we've had for a while of underglazes. And, you stir it up and it gets pretty liquid. But the new formula is looking really good. Erica really liked it. We actually brought, I think, 4 bottles back with us from NCECA,
mm-hmm.
and they're looking really good. So
I have switched over my jewelry line to completely the new formula, and it is amazing. It's great. It's
Did you get the little guys?
I got the pints
in the new formula, or they don't the pints? Yeah, because I don't know. Did they have the little guys? Because I'm sure you were probably like, I don't really need the pints, but
no, I do need the pints. But I only got 6 colors, or like 8 colors because I only have. I guess I might have gotten 10. So because I mixed 2 of my colors, but I have 8 colors for my line. So because for like the jewelry that I do, I mix like 2 of the colors, and then all of the other ones are pretty much straight out of the bottle, because their yellow is fire. The the black and the white are great, obviously, and then all the other colors are good, but it's just so nice. Like, I cannot describe to you how quickly it dries on just bisque, but also it works really well for Sgraffito. I have a friend that's been doing it with Sgraffito, and she has a new bottle of black, and it's working great for Sgraffito. And that was something that the last formula didn't hit the check marks for some of my friends for Sgraffito, and so I think it's going to be great for that, and because it didn't ever dry on wet clay.
Yeah, it felt more. I think the old formula felt more chalky and like.
Yeah.
It wasn't as thin and smooth, I don't think.
Yeah.
When applying it, Erica applies all of mine, but from the look of them, just after she's handed them over to me to carve, it's like, it definitely seems different.
Yeah. And so, it's just really great. I mean, if you've been kind of like on the fence about getting any Speedball underglaze, I think that now is a great time to do it. If you're ordering from Blick or any of the Blick, Clay King, any of the companies that sell it, they should have the new formulas. And it's just like, it's very comparable to all the other underglaze formulas, but it still has that really intense color saturation that is why I love it so much. The color is just beyond amazing. Like, 1 coat, you're basically at a full opacity. 2 coats is like bye to anything that was under it. So I think
Erica just depends on which clay body she's applying it to, but I feel like 2 is the max. Like, she doesn't need to do 3 coats of pretty much any of them.
Like, just the color, like the color is just super vibrant, and that's what I'm really loving about it. Also, the purple isn't shiny. Huzzah! That's been something that we've been working on, so that's really awesome. So it's I can't say anything but good things about the brand new formula. All good.
Yeah.
All good, good,
All
good.
right. So if you want to check them out, obviously we mentioned the different places you could buy it. If you want to look up all the stuff about the products, you can go to speedballart.com and find out about the underglazes and wheels and bats and all that good stuff. So,
Heck yeah.
Thanks, Speedball.
Thank you. I need to figure out a little jingle for speedballart.com. It will not be like the Hot Pocket jingle.
It might not. It might just need to be like just the word speedball somehow. I don't know if we need to do the whole website.
Speedball. I'll work on it, guys.
We can workshop that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll work on it. I got a whole drive to Colorado to work on it.
Oh yeah, you got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear the first question we've got?
Sure.
All right, so this one comes from our friend Jessica from Overbrook Clay. If you remember her, she was riding back with us from Masika. She traveled with us, stayed with us, all that good stuff. And her question was, how do you decide what forms are worth wholesaling? And how do you decide on the cost split?
Yeah.
So you wholesale some stuff now. I've wholesaled things for a bit. You've done a number of forms in wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to kind of get... Did you ever get inquiries for stuff that you were kind of like on the fence about wholesaling?
Yeah. I mean, I've wholesaled some things that I was just not happy about, but I think that for me, the short answer is wholesale what you like making. Because if you don't like making it, you're going to be really pissed off when you have to cut it in half or cut some money off of it to sell it. So,
right.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And as far as the cuts is concerned, sometimes it's not up to you to do a cut. Like fair is like 50%. Sorry, bye. Like they don't care.
Yeah, that's like standard operating procedure for wholesale, I believe.
Yeah,
is 50%. But if they're coming directly to you, you can make a little bit of a call, however you decide, and then they can take it or leave it, kind of thing. And you can also, if you don't want that split across the board, you can have, some customers that get a 50% split and some that get a 60-40 or something like that. That could depend on the forms you're deciding to do. Maybe there's something that you're asked to wholesale that you're like, so Jessica makes those donut vases. Mm-hmm. Do you know which ones I'm talking about? They're basically closed forms that have the hole in the top for a vase. It's a little involved to make that. It's not a simple cup. So you can pick and choose, hey, how many of these can I keep in stock and sell myself? And how many of these am I willing to part with? Like, if somebody asked me to make 50 of these, how much of a pickle would I be in? And would I be happy with getting 50% of the cost for that? Or is it like, hey, I can't quite do this at this price, but maybe I can do I take 60, you take 40, or you pay 60% of the price, and essentially a 40% discount for the buyer, for this item. And I don't know, I mean, you might not want to cut it down to below 50, but maybe because you're kind of leaving money on the table if you say, oh, well, I'm comfortable doing 25 of them or something like that. But, I do have to like making it, but I got to be able to make it efficiently. How happy would I be getting an order for 50 or so of this item? Like, am I going to be in a pinch and like hate my life making them? Or
right. And
is it something that I can, like the oil bottles or something that I don't mind wholesaling, I wholesale shot glasses, oil bottles, spoon rests, mugs, stuff like that. But, if I had to make 50 cereal bowls, for instance, like I'd probably be like, I don't know. I don't like making cereal bowls that much and they take up a lot of space and whatever. But, I might be more likely to want a lower quantity of those. But I've wholesaled pitchers before, actually. Some of that was, they weren't that specific about the form, and I'd had them sitting around, so I was willing to part ways with them.
Yeah.
for a price, and it was, if I had to make brand new pictures just for the order, it probably wouldn't have been worth it. But it was. I think at the time the retail price was 80, so I wholesaled them for 40, just to kind of get them out of my life essentially, because they'd been sitting around for a bit and they weren't super specific on what colors they wanted, or maybe I hadn't glazed them yet. But yeah, that was one that I was kind of like, I don't know about this yet. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I mean, that's hard. Definitely don't wholesale something you hate. That will rip your whole entire soul out. And if you're frustrated with the cost, like if somebody wants 50%, make your price higher. Like if your wholesale price isn't worth it to you, that means your retail price isn't high enough. So,
yeah. What about, like, I think she's 2 or 3 years into selling. What if, and she does it on the side. So what if you're not making a ton of stock and you're not selling at a ton of different ways, but like wholesale would take a chunk out of your inventory and it would be a little tough to accommodate? Like, is it limiting yourself of how many you're willing to make, or is it the price that's going to be worth it for you? Like, what do you think is more important for deciding whether it's worth it for you or not?
I don't think wholesale is worth it for people that are doing it part-time unless they're in it to do it a large quantity.
Just because they're going to be coming back for more?
I feel like wholesale is like a long game sort of situation. You know?
Yeah.
Consignment's short game. Wholesale's long.
Yeah. Or maybe maybe you can't do shows or something, for instance. Maybe you have family that you can't do commitments on the weekend, or your full-time job conflicts with shows. Yeah. So you can only do online, but you have excess stock. And you're like, I don't really know how to sell this, but somebody's asking about wholesale. Am I willing to wholesale my stuff? I don't know. Like, what does that mean? You got to know stuff about, terms and how long do people have to pay? What are your minimums?
Right.
What's your turnaround time? Hey, I got a show coming up in 3 weeks, but they're asking for an order and it's going to require me to make 40 pieces, but that's going to be maybe I don't have the time right now to focus on that because I'm making work for my show. I don't have excess bisqueware sitting around that I can just glaze and, give the wholesaler half of my bisqueware that I have sitting, and then I need to use the other half of bisqueware for my show that I have coming up. It depends on how good you are with your workflow of keeping up with stock. Like how depleted are you going to feel if you have to fulfill that wholesale order? Because you can't be like, okay, I'm willing to wholesale, but I can get it to you in 3 months or 4 months. Right. That's typically not standard with folks coming to you to buy.
For sure.
Because they're probably like, I mean, it's April now, but they could be reaching out to you in February to try to get stock on the floor for Mother's Day.
Right.
Which is here in, a few weeks, and it's like, we need this in like a month. We can't wait 3 months for this.
When is Mother's Day?
I think it's...
it's May 12th.
Yeah. I think it's the week after my pottery show. Yeah. Pottery sale.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks for the question, Jessica. Good luck. I think she's still considering that. I think she did a wholesale for her vases at one point because somebody asked. And I don't know if she's done more since then, but yeah. Alrighty. So, before we get to the topic for the day, we are both anxiously awaiting getting the new L&L kiln.
Oh, so anxious.
Which is the plug and fire.
Yes.
I'm trying to pull it up, or what the actual name is.
It is plug and fire.
Yeah, I was just looking at it earlier. Yeah, the plug and fire kiln.
How dare you, Ryan?
Plug and fire, plug and fire. What are you most like looking forward to? If you had to say like one thing.
What I'm looking most forward to is that it is like such low power. So it's 12.5 amps versus 15 amps, which is what my current one is. And like, for instance, at my parents' house, mine like tripped the breaker a few times. So because their
Really?
power's all fucked
Because it's
up.
the whole.
Yeah. And
Ooh.
so
So it's like right on the edge of that. Ooh.
it's like right there for a 15 amp breaker. And so the fact that it's so low power, and on top of that, the fact that it's going to be even lower for me to like eventually use solar with it is just really exciting.
That's gonna be fucking sweet.
I know. I actually like drafted out an email to try and get some solar panels. Anyway, we'll go to that later. But yeah. And speaking of,
Fingers crossed for you.
speaking of, I don't know if anybody knew this, but I still think this is the coolest thing. L&L's entire factory is powered by solar. They're like 100% off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the coolest thing in the whole world. And so obviously we align with their ideals. But that's probably what I'm most excited about. Also, the idea of being able to fire 8 cups instead of 4 for me, I'm stoked.
Okay, you just stole my favorite. My favorite was going to be the size inside the kiln is actually like a viable size that's not like the size of a grapefruit that you can sit in there. Like,
yeah.
I like that it feels like I can. I mean, I always pretty much pack my kiln anyways, but it's kind of nice that I can put a few things in there that are urgent, and I can like. I think the firing time they were talking about, like just a few hours. I think you can get like 4 or 5 hours or something like that.
5
Maybe
hours.
less. I don't know. Yeah, to cone 6, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's small footprint in there, and in my studio, because it'll be the third kiln I have in the studio. I can easily find a spot for that, especially when it can go into any outlet around the house. Like,
right. And I mean, like, that's something potentially like let's say you had to get something done and you like had to drive out to Louisville to your parents' house. Like, you could put that kiln in the back of your car, take it to their house, fire it at their house if you needed to. Or like if the kids wanted to come and paint pottery, you could take it to their house and
that'd be fucking sweet.
Right. You can like take this tiny kiln to anybody's house and like fire, like let's say you painted pottery at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning, like did a morning activity, fired it, and it would be done by the time
oh my gosh,
it's like a dinner time. So like that's
okay. I'm picturing like you know how you plug up a wheel and like take a wheel to demo at a show,
right.
Like, what if you had like a barrier around the kiln so nobody like touched it while it was hot, and you could like start the morning with like something, and then you like fire it through the day, and then somebody can come back and pick it up.
Right.
Like hey, come first thing in the morning and oh my gosh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I like the idea of taking it out of town to use. Like, if I'm going traveling somewhere, I can go on a trip and just hook it up at an Airbnb that I'm staying at.
Right. Especially
like,
especially if you have kids in your family, like nieces and nephews or whatever, like, and they want to do paint your own pottery, like, you can buy some bisque molds, or you could bisque some pieces. They can just get their, they can underglaze it with your speedball underglazes, or you can use stroke and coats or whatever, and boom, like day later, bing, bang, boom. I think that is like what isn't talked about enough with these type of kilns.
I was assuming it was just going to sit in my studio, but I kind of like the idea of like I can kind of work on the go.
Yeah.
Or just like, give that experience to somebody that doesn't have access, because you don't always want to be like, oh, well, you got to come up to town and
right.
We can do it. It's like, oh, you can just take stuff to their house and just
do it.
Fire it.
Just do it.
Especially with the Genesis, it's got the controller with like all the settings, right. And it's not.
Yeah, because like with the previous styles of kilns that are like this, it's only a 3 controller pad, so it's got an up, a down, and then a go. And so if you want to do something special,
which is what, like a cone setting and a slow, medium, fast, and that's it?
yeah,
Or does it not even
kind
have
of
that?
like you push through it and it's like, oh, what firing is this? What temp are you going to? How fast do you want it? Like, and you just go up and down, and it is controllable, but it's not like customizable. So that's what's really great about this. Not only that, but like if you are traveling with it, when you are traveling with it, you can unplug it. They've made it so that you can actually unplug the cords from the controller to the kiln, and you could just carry it separately so you don't have to worry about them getting messed up. And also
Nice.
you don't have, that's not attached to the kiln itself, so you're not worrying about like bumping it or hitting it when you're moving it around. So I think that I mean, on top of the obvious, this is going to be a great kiln for anybody with an apartment or renters. The
renters.
renters.
Okay, I feel like we're telling all of the secrets about this thing, but
I know.
like,
if we haven't sold it to you yet, I don't know if we will. Because
I'm getting more excited the more that you're talking about it, because I was like, okay, like how much am I actually going to use this? But I kind of like having all the spitball of ideas of options I could use it for.
Can you imagine Carl with a tiny little kiln? Are you kidding me? The options are unlimited.
He would try to make another fucking bird bath, and
I
the bird
know.
bath could not fit.
You're going to have to make it upright, Carl. 9 inches tall. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do, and like workshops. Oh my gosh, you could do workshops, like 2-day workshops. You can have the pieces out in a day. If you didn't have a big workshop, or did like jewelry or something like that, you could fire the pieces in a day. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things about this kiln. Lots of good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, where do you find all that info?
Hotkilns.com.
All right, we'll definitely share when we get those and get to test them out.
Yeah, so excited.
Yeah. All right, so the topic for today, 41 minutes in.
As we do.
Is... I actually made notes about this. It was... I mean, the general topic is basically calculated risk. So, like, how do we approach making calculated decision making, and what risks we're willing to take or not willing to take, or what's kind of in that thought process as we are kind of making those decisions. So there's a number of different kind of bullet points here that I was jotting down as I was thinking about this. A lot of it's just in your own making cycle of what you're taking risks as you're kind of running a business, and what's viable and what seems like is a little bit more of a stretch for you based on where you're currently at. So that's kind of where I was mainly focusing on it. And then Becca brought up something when I mentioned it to her, and she was like, or this as an option too. So so all right, I have one place we could start that is just, I feel like pretty relevant to us kind of right now too, with just making new forms. So how much risk you're willing to take with experimenting with new forms or new bodies of work that you don't already make and maybe haven't sold yet, but you're just, how much like pre-planning do you have to do for it,
and like
before you're willing to go in for it,
because you don't actually know if it's going to sell, right? So yeah, and so I mean, like, if you have a good following, or maybe like people that always kind of buy your things, it's not as risky as it would be if you maybe are like working hard, and like, not that they're not working hard, but you maybe have a humble following.
You're hustling for like every sale you make, kind of.
And you like go to a show and you have like all these new forms and none of them sell. Like, that's scary.
I feel like I asked Kurt about that at one point, about how much do you worry or do you feel pretty confident that things are going to sell whenever you publish them because of the history of things selling, and how much risk is involved that you feel like? And he was like, I still feel nervous every single time before I publish because there's no guarantee.
Right.
You just hope, and you think that you're making the right decision, that you've set yourself up to make those sales because, he uses a lot of data to influence his decision. So he feels like it's pretty calculated.
Right.
But there's no guarantees with any of these things. Like, he's going to, maybe he's doing the like translucent, the lights and stuff. Like that's not functional the same way that mugs are. So it's like, how much of a like need or demand is there for this specific form,
And it's not like you like, and I mean, being curt is one thing, but being normal people that maybe don't have the big online following, it's not like you can just do a pre-order, and be like, buy these if you want them, but I'm not going to make them before I sell them. Like the majority of humans that sell pottery have to actually make it to sell it.
Right.
And so that's like always scary.
Yeah, how much testing or forethought did you have with the games, for instance, when you were doing the dominoes or the, some of the other, I mean, you made that one game for yourself.
Yeah.
So that was probably a little bit of just testing it out. But, for the dominoes, for example, how much did you have to think about first?
I did not think about a lot, but what I did do is I considered the fact that, like, I had to do a pre-order for that because if I would not have known how many to make to sell, And yeah, I mean, it was like, I don't know who's going to buy these.
You made some test sets though, right?
Yeah.
With different thicknesses to figure out what actually was needed for it to work properly.
Right, but I also like the first set that I made was for my parents. So that was kind of like a lot of the testing was to my parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good example that you're testing it just for fun. It's not that, okay, I'm putting this time and investment into this and it has to sell because I've already invested the time. It was like, hey, you're probably having fun with it a little bit. Like, I don't know if you knew that you were planning to make hundreds of them. Yeah. Not hundreds of sets, but hundreds of dominoes.
Yeah.
In the coming months after that.
Yeah, and they're like pretty, they're not labor intensive, but they are labor intensive, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, like, I think that if I found out that these were like a hot seller, I think that I'd shoot myself in the foot. Like, because they're a lot, Like having I have 7 or 8 orders out right now for the pre-orders, and I'm like, oh shit, I hope I get these done.
Is it just the quantity that you have to keep track of and plan?
Yeah.
Or is it something else technical with the process that is just hard to keep up with?
The tumbling with the harder clay, I'm just going to have to be okay at it with a certain texture on the black clay, because it's a very textural clay. So, yeah. So I'm just going to have to.
And was some of that, because, I mean, you'd been tumbling for a while. I'm trying to remember, did you talk through how you decided on the tumbling process of like when you do it? Because I can't remember if you just said something about bisquing it, tumbling it, or like cone 5 mid-range tumbling it to vitrification. Firing it to cone 5 vitrified and then tumbling it, or if you kind of talked about that. How did you have to think through?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I've got a lot of tests with the fidget stones, so I tumble it for an hour at bisque, and then I'm working on figuring out how long to tumble it for at glaze. Like the porcelain, I'll tumble for like an hour and a half, like hour to 2 hours tops, but the black, I think I might have to tumble for 4 hours. So,
wow.
So it depends. I'm testing what 4 hours looks like right now, and if it's not any different than 2, then I'll keep it at 2. But, so, yeah.
And do you just keep stones out of it that you're like, okay, this one was done for 4 hours and this is how it feels, and this one was done for 2 hours and this is how it feels? Or do you have like, do you have grit or something that you could put in there to like help it along?
I have the grit, but it's in Indiana, and I don't want to buy any more. So
Oh, okay.
it doesn't
Because
really help.
that's meant to.
I mean, it helps, but it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It helps,
And that would cut
but
down
it
on how many
also
you could
hurts
put in
it
there too, right?
Like it also like grinds it down. So like you don't want to ground down too much because there's colors on it, so you can't tumble it for too long. So there's like a fine line.
Right.
But yeah, like we're not talking about that though. So like that's.
But that's part of the thing that you had to figure out,
Yeah.
right? You figured that out with the fidget stones, and you had prior knowledge.
Like I think that my testing involves a lot of like previous knowledge of other things. You know? Like I'm not going to just willy-nilly make dominoes when I've never made any small pieces that I've not tumbled before. You know? Like yeah, I think that.
And you probably didn't even. You could have hand did all these without tumbling. Yeah. I'm sure there's people that make dominoes that don't use a tumbler.
Yeah, I definitely could have. And it may have been faster. Who knows? But, like, yeah, like, there's a lot of... Like, I wouldn't just... If I had never done the earrings, tumbled the fidget stones, tumbled all those things, I would have never thought of tumbling dominoes. And I also wouldn't be confident enough in my, like, what I know... to be able to set like 600, 700 dominoes, you know?
Yeah,
and
that's
and
a
get
lot.
them finished in a month. So it's like, you know.
Shit, yeah.
Actually, I'm finishing them in like 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and it's really rough. But, yeah, I think that, like, selling is almost half of the battle, right? Because, like, when you do a new form or new something, you have to be able to make the form good enough to be sold, you know? Like...
Well, I mean, I think selling is half the battle for everything you're making.
Right.
In my opinion.
But, like, that's the calculated risk thing, right? Like, if you make one... Let's say you make one large bowl, like 10-pound bowl. Massive, right? And you want to like sell this bowl, and you've only made one, and then the next 5 that you make, there's a slightly too thick of a bottom, and you didn't biscuit correctly, and all 5 of those blow out. Like, that's the type of things we're talking about. Like, I don't think you should be making new shapes, if you haven't had some sort of some history with a similar type, shape, thickness, clay, stuff like that, you know?
It's kind of like a scale up situation. You kind of want to you kind of want to set the framework of having success in the bowl situation. You'd probably, before you do a 10-pound bowl, you'd probably want to be able to make successfully a 3-pound bowl or a few 3-pound bowls, and then maybe a few 5-pound bowls, and then work your way up to a 10-pound bowl. Because the weight distribution and proportions are way different when you scale up that much. Like, even 5-pound to 10-pound is drastically different. Or 8 pounds to 10 pounds is, like, just where the weight is. And you can definitely feel the weight difference and all of that. And you can't just trim out everything and just be like, okay, well, I'm going to take care of this with trimming.
Yeah.
You can't quite do that, but...
Yeah.
You can do it to some extent, but...
What about, I mean, like, it's one thing to do, like risk within your forms and your shapes, but I often think about risks financially. I think that paying $300 for a show is a risk that, you know, and, like, these high-priced shows that you're paying for, like, that's a very calculated risk that you have to take in order to make money. But, like, sometimes it doesn't pan out, you know?
Yeah, I think any show that you sign up for, you have to be... I want to say I kind of relate to, like, loaning money or something. You have to be okay that, like, you're not going to get that money back. You have to be willing to say, there's no guarantee that... I'm gonna have a reward on this. Like I'm gonna have ROI here.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have more of like a mental reward that like you went through this and you know more information than you did going into it. You found out something about the customer base in this city that you sold in. You know more about the type of vendors at this show and what customers are looking for. You know more about, how do you talk about your work with customers that don't really know much about your work, maybe, or don't know much about handmade. Maybe you're just like, you're handmade in a group of people that are more crafty or something like that. That's not, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right, maybe you're just, yeah, you're not in the right group of vendors of like what your work is or something like that. I feel like you were talking about kind of like, I feel like you made the analogy of art show products in a farmer's market setting or something like that.
That was fine art, like gallery, what is it? Gallery quality products in a farmer's market setting.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I feel in a like a cheap show, or not even cheap show. Like, I did a show 2 weeks ago that was, oh my God, I was so mad.
Yeah, what we didn't really talk about it. You breezed through it when we talked with Isaac and Heidi about it, but I didn't really get a sense of.
Yeah, so I signed up
show.
for this show, and like in past years, it's been very good for some people, and it's been at a specific location. It's called the Mod Market, and I signed up for it again. I signed up for it at the, Joe was like, yeah, my friend does it. It's really good. And I was like, great, let's do it. So signed up, $200, which is standard at this point, unfortunately.
2-day show?
1 day. So 1 day show
$200.
for $200, and I was like, okay. And then I find out that it is in the exact same location as the farmer's market is, at the same day that the farmer's market is, and they're not having a farmer's market that week because of this show.
Oh, I picture farmer's market customers coming expecting the farmer's market, and this show is there, and they're like, what the hell is going on?
And, like, the show was fine. Like, it was, like, there was a ton of vendors and stuff like that, but it looked like a farmer's market. Like, it looked like the farmer's market looks like. And I was just like, I would have never paid $200 if I had known that it was at the farmer's market location because of that.
That's what people expect, right?
I mean,
people expect farmer's market when it's especially the same day and time or whatever is the farmer's market.
And like, I guess in the past it's been at different locations, so that makes sense, pretty much. But yeah, it was just like really disappointing, and I only made like $500, which is better than I thought it was going to be. So
really,
yeah, I thought it was going to be garbage.
You're like, couldn't we have just like had the farmer's market today? Because you were still selling in the farmer's market, right?
Yeah, and so yeah, it was just kind of like a bummer, but that's kind of one of those things where you risk that money and you're just like, cool, that was great, love that.
Yeah, I feel like you've gone through a little bit of that this year with the shows that you've been doing,
dude. If I was like a beginner potter and I went through the year that I've gone through this year, I can guarantee you that I would not be a potter anymore after this year. 100%. It has been rough.
Are you talking in general or just the shows that you've been doing?
Just the shows. Yeah.
The shows.
Yeah. The debt to income ratio has been not great.
But is your mentality different going into those shows now that you're very experienced and your quality of work is better, you're more confident in it than somebody that's going in fresh and has no experience with shows? And they're like, this is a learning experience. I don't really know what to expect. So going in with expectations to some extent, or
I think that
low expectations or bad expectations, then it's like, you almost I don't
I
know.
think that, like, it's different. I think that you still get beat down pretty hard. You still get, like, those, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm garbage type feelings, but you don't, uh, but but I can't do anything else. Like, I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of like
That's
stuck in this situation that is like, this is my whole life, and this is something that I've built up for these so many years. Yes, I could just give it all up and like go work at Kroger, but like but like that's the alternative, right? I have no,
yeah.
I have
You're kind of like, what are the options on the table for me? Do I sign up for these shows that I'm not really sure about? I mean, you were signing up for the farmers market. You were doing that pretty consistently,
Yeah.
which seems pretty low risk. You have time to do
Right.
it. It's, you know,
part of the community,
and you're in that physical
Yeah.
location for a period of time. So it's probably good to build that
Yeah.
consistency. But yeah, the shows of, I mean, they're all going to be pretty brand new shows to you because you just haven't physically been in that location for
Yeah.
very long.
Yeah, I mean,
To have that experience with the shows. So it's like, it's really, you're throwing darts at a board and hoping
yeah.
you hit something.
Yeah, I'm still hoping for something because I can't really give up. You know, I have bills to pay.
Mhm.
You know, thankfully I don't have very many bills to pay, so I don't have to have a ton of money.
Mhm.
Like in my, I don't have to make a ton of money. I realized this year that what I'm actually living off of is the things that I've sold to people, like my equipment that I've sold to people right now, like.
Like the high roller and some
Yeah,
other
like
stuff.
I sold
the
my
kiln
kiln. Yeah, like certain things that I are just like big ticket items. Like, that $2,000 will last me.
Maybe
a
that's
couple
what you
months.
needed to get you through this
It
season.
probably is.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's like all the stuff that I've spent money on in the past that I'm just selling off. So, yeah, but it's interesting. I feel like, you say like when you're like, oh, a calculated risk taker. I told you this, but my mom says that I'm a calculated risk taker, and I always have been. And I think that that's what's different than me and you in our, like, the way that we do things.
Is there a scale of it? Because I'm like, I feel like I'm way more calculated
You're not
than
a
you,
risk
but maybe
taker,
it's just
Ryan.
I'm
You're not a risk taker. You're just a calculated person.
I would still say there are some risks. It's just the risk I'm willing to take are very low risks.
I'm a high risk.
Because of the amount of calculations I've done.
I'm a calculated high risk taker, as opposed to Ryan's calculated low risk taker.
Low risk taker, yeah.
So like me buying a van in a day, me buying a house in a day, me.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the most calculated risk business wise, and the thing that I was thinking of the most recently was the willingness to take on like the 200 mug order. I think that was probably the biggest risk that I was thinking of, that actually was, took a lot of like trial and error as I was on the tracks. Basically, I was going and you have the deadline in sight, and you got to figure things out as you're going, and hopefully you have enough experience and efficiency and speed and just the ability to make it through. So that's kind of what I came up with. Besides, some of the other stuff, like the new form stuff that I was thinking of with like soda firing, but that's very low risk in a sense of I have the backbone of the other body of work that I can rely on. And the soda firing, I mean, I am keeping in the back of my mind, like, hey, I will need to sell this at some point. I'm a little iffy about, like, would I price it at? Are people willing to spend that price on it? Do I have enough knowledge to talk about it to customers and get them to understand what they're buying and why they're buying it and why it's different? How do I how do I bring it out at shows? Do I have to apply with those forms? Will I need to do that at some point? Maybe. But also I'm like, hey, this needs to be fun first, because if I'm not having fun with it, it's not gonna be around long term. So, and it's kind of sparking this interest in like, okay, I get it. I'm going to be very calculated with it. I'm going to do a bunch of test tiles and see what these colors look like and try to understand the kiln and how it works. How to get a little bit more, better understanding of like what the results are going to look like, so that I put it in and I have a pretty good idea of what it is and what I can sell it, and that I can sell it when I'm ready to do that. But yeah, that's kind of the forms and the low risk option that I was thinking about for like body of work wise, for me right now.
I think that, yeah, I mean, like, and you know, what's the highest risk that I've ever taken as far as my business is concerned? Well, that'd be starting my business. like quitting my job and going full tilt with $6,000 in savings. Like, that was it, you know? And you would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
You would never, ever, ever do that.
No.
But like, some people need
Would
that.
you have, if you had different options on the table? If you had a better paying job, would you have made that decision?
I don't know.
You had to have a sense of not being happy in the situation you were in.
I wasn't in a really bad paying job. You know, I was making $48 a year for, I mean, like, okay. For me, it wasn't a bad paying job, you know? Like, I could live.
But how old were you at that
24?
time, too? 24. Yeah, that's pretty good. I feel like that's
23?
Pretty good. I was making about... Yeah, I think I was making about 45 when I graduated college. My first full-time job was 45.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I wasn't making awful money, but it just got to a point where it was like the job was too stressful, and my friend was like, "You're done. You're doing this. Let's go." Mm-hmm. Business plan, boom.
Yeah, because nobody likes to be in a stressful situation. You're like, what if you just... Can you live with it for another, you know... You're going to be so much more financially stable in 8 months if you just get through the next 8 months,
right?
You know?
Yeah, and it's like, I had just bought a house like 2 years prior or a year prior, and like all these things, you know? And, oh my God, like how much debt did I rack up just trying to get into full-time pottery? So much fucking debt. The first thing I bought...
Oh, you're talking about because of having the house?
Yeah, well,
or
just
because you had to buy all the equipment and everything?
I had to buy a wheel. Oh my God, I had to buy a wheel. That was the first thing I put on my business credit card, $800, and then I remember I had to get a kiln. And when I got my second kiln, I didn't have enough money to buy it, and somebody loaned me the money until I could pay them for it. And this is like not like. This is not like my mom loaning me the money. This is like a friend from church. like, you know? And yeah, I mean, like, there's so many things that I did that was risky as far as like nobody would really do. But I also didn't have kids. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have all those things. I still don't. So I still can be that risky. Because it's only me I'm thinking about, right? But like just starting a job doing pottery is such a risky thing, because if you think about it, pottery, unless you get a fucking ram press, you're doing all the work. You will never exceed the amount of pots that you can make. You know, you will only make your stuff a higher price, but you'll never exceed the amount of pots that you can make. So
without having a team, others that you're paying, without having extra overhead,
without having all that overhead. So literally, you're setting yourself up for making a certain amount of money. Whether you know what that money is or not, you're setting yourself up to make a specific amount of money without anybody else's help, right? And that, like, is wild to me. Because, like...
Yeah.
Like,
It sounds kind of like the hard, like figuring out how to make, let's say $30,000.
Yeah.
Is like harder than probably making $30,000 to $60,000.
Yeah.
Making that first $30,000.
Oh, for sure. And then like it's not like you're fucking figuring out how to drop ship a product that you buy from China that you like bring in, that you could literally just like buy a warehouse when you needed more space. Like rent a warehouse.
You're not buying a product that's done and you just have to figure out the marketing
It's
side
not
of
like this isn't passive income. This is unpassive. This is active income. This is this is very active income.
Yeah, I mean you're involved in the steps from start to finish.
So really, like financially, it's an idiotic decision to become a potter because literally you're only capable of what your body is capable of, and that's a risk in itself.
And there has to be some drive there. Like there has to be a reason that you're driven to.
Right,
want
you
to
have
do
to
it.
like it in some way, you know. Like,
yeah.
As we discussed last week, you don't have to love it, but you do have to like it.
Like it a certain amount, yeah. Or like certain parts of the process a certain amount.
And I mean, like, and you have to be good at it, right? Like, you have to like it, you have to be good at it. And you have to, the risk has to be less than the supposed outcome. Like, that's a lot to juggle there.
The risk has to be less than the supposed outcome.
Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I guess I'm saying that, like, the risk has to be, like, let's say you leave a job that's $20,000 a year. We're talking Mouse's incomes right now. So let's say you.
Why don't you just say minimum wage job?
Yeah, minimum wage job, which is ridiculous, by the way, $7. So let's say you leave that minimum wage job and you become a potter. Well, that pottery has to be at least making you double to make sense, because you're going to be working 3 times as much as you were at that minimum job. So it's got to be at least making you double, hopefully triple what you were making before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's just not worth it.
Because of the sheer amount of time invested.
Yeah, I mean, you're freaking killing your body, you're killing your lungs, you're killing your brain, you're killing everything. Like, by the time we're all done, we're just going to be mush.
Some people would probably say your brain is probably in a better state.
That's true.
You might not be killing your brain. You're probably in a better headspace, I would think.
Okay? It depends.
Oh, I thought you were talking about, like, mental satisfaction.
No, I'm not talking. I'm literally talking about physical shit. Like,
your physical.
And you lose health insurance. So, like, there you go.
Yeah, given that you're relying on
it's
from that job.
It's like how people, like, why do people want to become the president? Like, you have to be a goddamn psychopath to want to become the president. and like, why do you want to own your own business? You have to be a fucking goddamn psychopath to want to own your own business. But, like, sometimes it turns out to be, like, a great thing. You know?
Yeah, and the path until you decide that, like, okay, this was really good, you have to be, like, you have to really stick it out and, like, really, I mean, we were talking about liking it enough, but, like,
you have to have a no give up attitude.
Yeah, the like hill that you're climbing until you, like, reach the peak seems very high, until you're like, okay, I can see the perspective, like, long term, and you know, the possibilities. But it feels like you're just going
at a
uphill.
15% incline right there. Like, you are going up. You know, you're going up. I think that
because there's just so much that you don't know, and there's also so much that you're learning along the way. You're learning while you're trying to make money, and it's like your stuff is not at a quality that it should be for people to want to buy it. So that's where you you have some variables there of like, how do you talk about it? What is your personality? What are your
How can I
prices?
sell myself?
Where are you physically located? Like all of these factors that are so unique to your circumstance. Or do you have a partner that has income that you can, helps pad that runway you have
Yeah.
to like have it work. I don't know. I'm kind of curious where our listeners are, if they are. I was thinking about this recently. I was like, I wonder what percentage of folks are doing this on the side, and also how many of them have a partner with another, a second income.
Right.
Basically.
Like when I was going through all of the stuff at the beginning, I just remember like going to these shows and being so jealous of the people next to me that their husband came and helped them, or their wife came and helped them put up their tent, and they like talked to them and they were like help setting up and all the things, and like as somebody who has done this by myself for 10 years, it is we'll just say we're getting into real talk right now, but it is infuriating. It is infuriating to see some people and hear them complain about certain things, and I'm like, bro, you have somebody at your house that's supporting you. Like, if they're not supporting you like actually with financially, they're supporting you mentally. Like, as far as anybody's concerned, you are my business husband who is supporting me mentally, and you're one hell of a person to talk to when you're having a bad day. So
yeah, I'm not the best.
But like, it's just,
I'm not gonna cheer you up.
It's just like all the times that I was like, God, I want to fucking quit this shit. Like, and you're setting up your fucking tent in the rain, or you're doing all these things by yourself, and then you see all these other people with like supportive husbands, or people that are like, yeah, babe, do your thing, like go for your goals.
Even if they're not supportive and they're just like, they don't want to be there, they're also a second set of hands that can help you and take direction to some extent, even though they're going to complain a little bit. But you can deal with a little bit of complaint. You could be like, okay, like, just do this.
Yeah.
Just put that stuff in a box or whatever. And then, they're like, whatever. Like,
yeah, and I mean, like, and obviously, there is a few people out there that don't have supportive partners, and you should divorce them. But, like, that's not legal facts, but but you can do better. But
well, some of it is probably they probably enjoy the going to the shows and stuff because it's their time away for themselves. Like, they're doing that for themselves,
for sure.
Right?
And some of it, some of life is like that.
And it's also like, hey, this is a part of my life that is for me, and it's something that is really, like, to an extent, some of this is like, you don't really care that you don't need everybody around you to understand why you're doing the thing you're doing. Some of that, like, people's family, it's hard to talk to them about, a business or whatever, or why are you doing this? Or what do you, the show, you're like, oh, I'm starting to sell my stuff and I'm doing these shows, and, they're like, oh, like, maybe I should get out there and like see you sometime, or like, it's like, you almost have to have this intrinsic motivation and just want to be doing this, and like realize that this is for you and you get to make it your own.
Or fear of failure. That works too. Like, either one is fine. But yeah, I think that like we've completely gotten off topic, but I think this is really important to talk about. We really minimize the emotional support that the people around us give us. And that
definitely factors into the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, if and also if you're mentally drained and you can't make decisions in a clear, I don't want to say in a clear mind, but like there are so many variables that factor into how you make decisions. And if you're just mentally drained, you're not going to go through options A, B, C, D, and E before you settle on which one's the best. You're just like, I'm just going to go with this because it seems the easiest and makes the most sense.
And you're
going
to
to
make stupid decisions because you're literally like you're searching for money. You know, if you're mentally drained, like I have been for the last 3 years.
And financially drained to an extent. And,
like, you're just gonna make stupid decisions that you look back on and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I got through that, or maybe you didn't get through it. It's so hard to go through this, and like, let alone with a person that actually supports you. If you have nobody that supports you, it's almost impossible. That's where like good friends come into play.
I think there's also a factor here of if you do have someone that supports you and like they're available for support, but maybe they don't feel like they might not be giving you the space to figure this stuff out. Like I've done this myself to Rachel in certain circumstances where you don't give someone time to figure out what they need to figure out on their own. And they need that. Just, it doesn't have to be I'm going to spitball everything with you and brainstorm everything with you so that I can help you succeed, because a lot of that you have to want to make those decisions and do that work yourself to succeed. So, it might be like, okay, I have financial stability because I have this other support system, but maybe I'm not mentally as feeling supported because they're like putting this pressure on me. They're like, you've got to make this work. You've got to make X amount of dollars in the next 3 months, or else it's not going to, like, you're going to have to find a job.
Oh, yeah. And like on top of that, it's on the other opposite side, like the what toxic positivity type thing, where like somebody's like, babe, you should do this, and you're having hesitations, and your partner is like, you need to do this, like pushing you into something, and you feel like maybe you shouldn't be there, you're not ready, and you don't want to do it, but they're pushing you, and they're like supportive, so yeah, I should do this because they're supportive, That's on the flip side of that too.
And I think some of that's also, there's different personalities and skill sets of, not everybody's made out to be a small business owner. Like, not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. I think some of it is, like, a lot of it is a learned skill set, but I think there is a lot of self-awareness as well of what does it take? What do I know others that do this? What's involved from their perspective, and what do they have to go through? Like, do I see them going through it? What kind of questions do I need to answer? Like, do I want to go through figuring out all that stuff with taxes and getting a business license and where to sell and reaching out to people and sharing my story on social media and, putting myself out there and all of these things that you have to figure out, and being vulnerable, that it's not always the best option, like the best thing for everybody.
Sometimes the best option is working for a small business. like
and that's also very low risk too, because you're getting paid a steady income, hopefully. I mean, I don't know how much you're making, but you're probably making
more,
enough money for you you get paid when you show up and then you leave. Not like every day,
and I
but
think that
you're going to get money for the time that you're there.
As far as testing is concerned, I think that, like if you were the type of person that was like, I want to eventually own my own business, I think that it's so smart to work for a small business. I worked for a small business before I started my business, and I learned bookkeeping. I learned like note taking, which is a weird skill, but I did learn it. And like planning, scheduling, batching receipts, taxes. Like, I learned all that shit, and I would have never known that, you know? And I don't have the support system around me to be able to learn that, you know? Like, I would have never known any of that stuff.
Did you know that you were... Did you know in the moment that you were learning those skills for your future self?
Not at
or were
all.
you just... Did you have an interest in it in a sense? Or were you kind of like thrust into it and like, you need to learn this stuff because our small business doesn't have enough people around to do this, so you need to do it as well?
It was kind of that, but also like I had learned at Sherwin-Williams some big business stuff, and then it kind of like transferred to the small business stuff. And then I was really good friends with the bookkeeper, so I learned a lot on her end because I'm just interested in that stuff. You know, I just ask a lot of questions. And so, like, I would have never known how to make an invoice for somebody if I hadn't worked at the small business that I worked at, you know. I would have never known what lead generation is, which is cold calling people, by the way.
A very marketing term. Yeah.
And stuff like that if I had never worked at Sherwin-Williams. And...
Ojo!
How was the movie?
It was good.
Good.
It was good.
And so I think that is what helped me succeed, because I mean, I'm sure that the people of this this world can kind of figured this out. But my parents aren't exactly the most supportive. Like, they're not the least supportive by any means, but they're not involved in my business at all.
Not involved. Yeah, I was thinking the word involved.
They're not involved in my business at all. My dad is very interested in it, but like when I come home, that kind of stuff, or when I see them in person, and my mom is like, "Don't tell me anything I don't want to know." She's just, her brain's full, and so it's not like I can just call them up and be like, "I have questions," or "I was wondering if you knew this," like, because they don't know that stuff, and they don't, like, my parents are always there to answer questions, but that would, you know, it's completely out of their realm. So, and I have aunts and uncles that are also in businesses, and if I tried to ask them questions, they would totally just push me to the side. So, like, so, you know, not having that kind of support system in that general sense.
Yeah, it's like, where do you turn? You're just standing on an island, and you're like, I have
nobody.
Just me.
I have nobody, like maybe a few friends, right? And so that is kind of what I've been like, you know, that's kind of the difference, I guess. Not difference, but that's kind of where I've come from and how I've had to get past all of that. And I think that's honestly why I am such a big risk taker, because if I had time to think about shit, I would never do it. So...
Do you feel like having the friends to talk to about things you're trying to understand or figure out? Do you get a more real response from them because they're not trying to like boost you? They're not trying to.
Yeah, maybe.
They're not trying to sweet talk you, but like, I mean, it was kind of like you talked about, like, there's different friends you go to for different things.
Yeah, like you're not a sweet talker.
We talked about that at the NC Could Talk. You know, I think having a set of friends that have different skill sets and different expertise, I guess, you can figure out who you need to go to instead of just like, oh, yeah, like, it'll be fine, or, you know, you'll figure it out. Like, you got this.
Yeah, and I think that especially, like, when I was in Monroe, and I'm sure you have this too with, like, the people around you, you have certain friends. Like, I had a lot of business friends when I was in Monroe. Everybody I knew owned a business. And so all we did was talk about business. Like, that was it. And but you have, like, certain people that are idea business people and certain people that are realistic people. And so, like, when you want to be hyped up, you go to the idea person. When you want to be realistic about money, you go to the money person, you know, like certain things. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I, Ryan? Am I a realistic person? Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about if I'm
Yeah.
asking you for ideas. Yeah, I feel like me to you is probably an idea person because I'm throwing out a
That's
bunch of
true.
ideas, and then you get to parse through which ones you're willing to actually do and seems realistic of what you
Yeah.
actually can do and want to do.
Want to talk about? Yeah.
Is that is that
Like when
accurate?
you're giving me ideas about your stuff. Yeah, I pick and
Mm.
choose.
No, about your stuff of
Oh.
like, I, I feel like I recommend things or throw ideas out of you could do this or
Mm-hmm.
could do that or what if you did this, and then a lot of it falls to the wayside because you're like, I don't really feel like doing that.
Well, you have an unfortunate position of being the friend of somebody who is unbelievably unmotivated right now. So, like,
But yeah, that's why I got to keep throwing
yeah,
ideas here. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know what's going on in your idea brain if you're
mm-hmm.
going through a lot of things of spitballing what you want to do or what's possible, or it's one of those things where you don't think about something until somebody randomly like mentions something that's not even related to what
Right.
you're considering or is on your plate, and then you're just like, oh well, like I hadn't even thought about that, like I can adapt that to my business this way and go about it this.
Yeah,
Kind of like the pre-orders for the soda pieces. I'm like, I would have never thought about pre-ordering my soda pieces before they were done. Like I would
yeah,
never take that much like quote unquote risk to sell something before it's even fired in the kiln.
right.
That's a soda firing that I have no idea what it's going to look like either. Like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's been good to have. I think it's great to have people, the people that have been. We kind of talked about this at the Ensika thing, but the people that have been that are at the same level as us, Isaac, Linderman, um, like Rebecca, like all those people that have
Mm-hmm.
grown at the same rate that we've kind of grown. And
Mm-hmm. And we've talked to on the
right.
podcast, and you get a sense of like, okay, how are you thinking about this thing, or you found success with this? How did you go about
Right.
it?
It
Or
makes it a lot less, risky. It makes it a lot less scary to do certain things because the people next to you have done them or they're thinking about it too.
yeah, I mean they're essentially your test
Yeah.
in a way. I mean you can parse some things through them, like, hey, what went wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, how can I plan for that? Okay, this could go
Yeah.
wrong.
I also think that it's really important to have people in your life that are not connected at all in any way to business. Like, for instance, an example, I was selling these tiny little pendants, these ones. I sold some of those. I
Mm-hmm.
did like a little quick story sale. And at first I was going to put them up for a certain price. I think I was going to put them up for 45 shipped. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
45 shipped, and I texted like 3 different people. I texted Jen, who's my friend back in California, and she's not a potter,
Mm-hmm.
but she does listen to this podcast. And hi Jen.
I did.
And she's not a potter, but I was like, what about this? And she's like, I think it's too expensive. She goes, what if you had an option that didn't have the cord? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. So I ended up like canceling the story and then re-uploading it with a price with the cord and a price without the cord. So
Mm-hmm. Does the cord make a big difference for people? Because I don't buy necklaces, so I
think
don't
it
know.
did
But
in
I would
this case
suspect
because it was
some.
like $5 less. And so people are like, I don't need the cord. I'm going to put it on something else. And then some people are like,
Maybe they already have
exactly.
a chain and they
or
swap
they're like
out.
crafty
They have
themselves.
a silver
Yeah,
chain
exactly.
or whatever.
So, and it was
Yeah.
easier for me. I didn't have to make them, So, like, I would have never done that if she hadn't said something and had been honest about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, that's kind of like you could sell your dominoes in a case that's made And would people be willing to buy that with
Right.
the case, or do you want them to just buy the Dominoes and they'll just throw them in a Crown Royal
Right.
bag and make it
Yeah.
work? You
I
know.
was really. I haven't shipped them out yet, but I was considering. I think that I want to ship them when I'm in Colorado, even though the shipping is like supposed to be before Colorado. I was gonna message everybody because I really want to make bags at my mom's house because I have.
Oh, like canvas
Yeah,
bags.
like I have some like fat quarters that I can just sew up a quick little bag and tie it off.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
so I was thinking
Yeah.
about making bags, and so I was hoping that people would be okay with just like extending it maybe a week.
Wait, you don't want to put it in like a really thickly padded like astronaut box or something?
That's bulletproof? No.
Oh yeah. Bulletproof with a lot of padding.
No.
You gotta make it an experience to open your
Yeah.
Dominoes.
But anyway, that's kind of what I've been thinking about that. But yeah, like I think it's really important to have when you have those when you are thinking about doing something that's like a little out of the ordinary, a little something that you would never have thought of. It's really important to have people that are in your circle of business and people that are completely out of it that will tell you the truth.
Yeah. How much of, if we're going like just small scale, let's just say we're talking about glazing or designs. Let's say you're doing your fancy cups and you're doing designs. How do you decide do you care at all about whether this color and is going to be more sellable than, like, how important is it you to make sure that you're making decisions that this thing will be sold by the time it's put out there and available? Because I think about that with glaze options, for instance, and I'm like, this thing's got to sell a certain amount or else I'm going to have to get rid of this glaze combo, because why have all these pieces sitting around if they're not going to sell? So I also think about that when I make new glaze combos. I'm like, I have to have a sense of enjoyment like I have to like it a certain amount.
Yeah.
And feel like it fits with what I'm doing.
I think
versus...
that it's really important to have all the things. You maybe just don't have to make all the things as much. So, for instance, I will not use fancy cups as an example, but I'll use earrings. There's like 3 colors that are not popular, right? So like the pink, the green, and the purple are not super popular.
And that's in your selection of 6 or 8 that you're like featured collection right now.
And like yellow is up and down, right? So I always make extra of the ones that I know will sell, but I always have the other ones on hand that don't sell as much, just in case. But it's not like I'm going out of my way to make extras of those, So I always have them as an option, but I don't have them as like an option for wholesale, essentially. I mean, I do, but like,
what would lead you to stop doing that color? Like, is there a limit to when you're like, I would guess you're making that decision of the selection because it's a whole collection, so it has to have this certain aesthetic of all
like
the
every
color options.
Needs to be there. Yeah.
It's not going to look the same and hold the same weight if you have 3 colors instead of 6 colors.
Yeah.
It's not going to seem as cohesive, I guess.
So it's like you have to have a certain amount there, but you don't have to have the quantity of each of those be the same. You don't have to make 4 of everything.
Yeah.
You can make 1 of something.
Yeah, I think
the other.
I think the way that I was kind of thinking about that and adapting that to my own was mugs, for instance. Like, most people buy a 14-ounce mug. But there are a few people, like if you're at the coffee show, there's going to be some people that get those 6-ounce mugs.
They love the 6-ounce
get those little guys.
They love them.
And then if you're at some shows, you're going to get people that want the largest mug you have possible. They're going to want that 24-ounce mug. So, you make it's kind of like a bell curve. You make the biggest, the highest point, the highest quantity of them are right there in the middle, right there in that sweet spot, that 12 to 14 ounce. And maybe you have the most color options in there because that's what most people are going to buy. And then you just have a few of the small guys and you have a few of the big guys. Because, there are some customers there. And it's nice to be able to, like, pull those out of the bin when you're like, okay, like, they're asking for small ones, and hey, I've got a few of those that you can pick from, and you can connect with them a little bit there. Be like, yeah, most people get these, but like I really do like these, and I'm glad that I make them instead of just because you could just completely say I don't make small mugs. Sorry,
Yeah.
people don't people don't buy them enough, um, but yeah, I think I find some forms. Another safe way for me to try out a new glaze is to put it on forms that I
Oh,
know
I
will
love
sell.
that. Yeah.
So like the bottles, for instance, I just throw different new glaze combos on those because I'm going to display them all as an assortment anyways. So it's not a huge hit on my inventory to glaze 3 or 4 in this new glaze combo on oil bottles when I'm making 60 of them,
Right.
So, yeah, I feel like that's a good way. And maybe, if there's a form that you make a lot of and you sell a lot of, like use that to be your sample size for new colors, or adjusting a little bit of the way that you make the form, or if you change the size of it or something like that. I don't know. It feels like an easy way. One other thing I was thinking about, in relation to trying something that maybe you're not as experienced in, but maybe you want to give it a go, was like teaching. Like if you want to talk about your work and teach in a sense, I was kind of like thinking through ways that you can kind of test the waters a little bit. And one thing I was coming up with was, and we kind of did this early on when we first met, was doing like IG lives. Like, how comfortable are you with people watching you make your stuff? If you're not comfortable with that, you're probably not going to be able to talk through
Yeah.
what you're doing while you're doing it if you don't like people watching you. And then like, there's no cost to that. You're just in your studio, you're in your groove, you're in your comfortable space. You are choosing what you want to throw. You're not being asked to throw something that you're not comfortable with. You get to set the tone. You get to choose how long you're on it. You get to choose the angle. You get to choose how much you want to talk or don't want to talk. And then you can kind of like, I want to say, use it kind of like I don't want to say interview, but like use it like just a little test for you to say, okay, maybe I want to like this piece, I'm going to talk through what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And it's going to be people that are potters as well as people that aren't potters that are watching. So you don't have that pressure of like, okay, well, maybe they know more than I do and they're watching me, but like you don't really know who's watching. So in a sense, you're just doing your thing, and maybe you talk through it and you're kind of getting more comfortable with talking about what you're doing and explaining it in a way. I think that's a good way to just test the waters and, hey, is this something that I'm good at or could do in the future? Do I see myself
Right.
doing it? Besides thinking of like the financial, is it worth it for me to do it? I was kind of thinking through that for teaching. And also, you're going to be teaching one here soon. You've got we meant to mention this earlier, but you're going to be teaching something soon. What's
I
coming
have
up?
a mixing bowl class on how to create a 3-piece mixing bowl set, like how to measure it and how to make the forms consistent and so on and so forth. And that is May 15th.
Have you
No, I
taught that
haven't.
before?
So that should be
Okay.
fun.
Nice.
But it,
I think we talked about when I was making those mixing bowls. I only made like 10 maybe 8 mixing bowl sets, and they were one of those forms that like didn't really sell.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, and I also like had a wholesaler ask me about them, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to like
Yeah.
wholesale these.
my mixing bowls sell really well, and traditionally have sold really well. They're just a good shape, I guess. And I think that a lot of this talk is the class is going to be how to make a good belly on a bowl, because I think that's hard. It's hard to get that
Yeah.
nice curve at the very base that looks like it's going out instead of like coming down and then in.
Yeah, I think so much of like social media and what we're sharing, you don't really see inside pieces that
Yeah.
much. So the outside, I feel like, takes a lot of the precedents, and you don't really notice a good curve on the inside until you're physically seeing work in person. And I'll admit, like, I don't have the best curve on the inside of my bowls.
It's
I
hard.
don't even like making bowls that much. But
Curves on the inside is hard.
and I'm like, you know, it's yeah, it's pretty challenging, and you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, how much do I enjoy this versus is it sellable? You know, could it be more sellable if the curve was really nice on the inside? It could be.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm going to be up in the Beals this summer, and I'm not going to lie. It would be really awesome if I could steal one of their kilns for, like, 2 firings to just make, like, 7 nesting bowl sets. Now that I have the space to put them somewhere, it'd be really nice. Because I just...
You do have the space in the van? Is that what you mean?
I have so much space now because I lofted my bed. I could fit, like... fit, like... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Because if you make the nesting bowls as you're supposed to,
totes.
they're not really at risk of 16 totes. Oh my gosh, really? Are you talking about the shallow totes?
They're like...
The ones that are like 6 inches deep, like the height of a mug?
Mine are like the hefty ones that have the tall lid. So they're like 9 inches. Like
the black ones with the yellow lid?
Nope, they're clear with the blue lid. But they have like a raised lid instead of one that goes down. Okay. They're still shallow, but they're not super shallow. I can fit 2 of my, like, a small one and then a big fancy cup in it. Stacked.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, when space is not the limitation, as it was in the past... You got a little bit more options there.
Oh, fucking love mixing bowls.
So what? And you could talk about this at the thing, but when is the class again? I think I cut you off when you mentioned it. And when you're doing it with Sephora, correct? Sephora, May 15th. At what time?
No idea. You can look at
it's on their website.
C4 Ceramics, SIPOR Ceramics.com.
I'll find it right now. May 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Nesting mixing bowls with Becca Otis for $40.
$40. That is a...
$40 hairs.
That is a Wednesday. Shit.
Wednesday. It's coming up.
I should probably put that...
You got to figure out where you're going to be.
It wasn't even in my calendar. So I'm going to be at my parents' house. Nesting.
Good thing is you can make those on the Speedball Artista, I would suspect.
I can. See, what's funny is that I had 7 p.m., 6 p.m.
Good thing we talked about the 8 p.m. Eastern for it.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I thought I had it in my calendar. But I thought she pushed me back to August or something. And I've lost all the things. So,
your other one's in September. You're throwing efficiently.
Yeah, the 18th. And I think she did push the May one back, but I couldn't I don't know what happened. So it probably was on my calendar and it just went away. So, usually I'm pretty good about it.
Well, it's there now. May 15th. Get signed up if you want to learn about mixing bowls. Did you, like when you went into teaching, did you feel like it was, I keep going back to the risk because that's what we're talking about, did you feel like it was a risk for you to do it?
Did I feel like I was the worst teacher ever? Absolutely. Was I the worst teacher ever? Probably. Yeah, I think I did. Well, I especially felt like it was a risk because that was right when I opened up the shop.
Did you feel like you had to do it because you had the studio,
I felt like
right?
I had to.
And you had to... Yeah, because that's part of what keeps that cash flow going.
Yep.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like going to going to work and getting that paycheck after you put those hours in. Like you show up for the thing, you teach those days, and you know it's 6 weeks or whatever. You know you're gonna have that cash at the end or at the beginning, I guess, if they pay for it, but beforehand. But you know it's already kind of guaranteed in a sense, and all you gotta do is show up.
Yeah.
For the most part,
it's so nice. Yeah.
I mean, it's a mental drain to do it,
Yeah.
but it's.
How do you feel not teaching anymore? Did you feel like you needed to stop, or was it like?
It was just a time thing. It was you know, I always, and I think it just kind of naturally fell off. There wasn't a discussion, and I was, you know, at Baker Hunt I was 1099, so you know it wasn't like I was expected to do X amount
right.
for, you know, the quarter or for the year. It was just kind of like, here's the options. Like, what do you want to do? What's your calendar look like? And it just kind of naturally got to a point where, oh, well, like, I have other commitments, so I can't do those. And then it was like, well, you know, if we want to do these other ones, you know, reach out and we can come up with. And it was just like thinking through what I wanted to teach or what I was excited to teach. Like, there wasn't anything. I'm just not as excited to teach beginners.
Oh yeah, same.
Like, that don't already have an interest in pottery, and that's usually what I was doing when I'm talking about like the most recent teaching I was doing, like date nights and stuff like that. It's not that I wouldn't show that. Like I would like when I would, because when I was signed up to do it and I was committed to doing it, I still showed up and like.
Yeah.
I feel like I did well when I was there because I knew what I was expected to do. It was just, you know, I just wasn't as passionate about what I was teaching, and you know, for the money, it wasn't, you know, I'd make like a little bit over $100 for 2 hours of
right.
teaching. You know, it wasn't anything. It wasn't moving the needle for me. It wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't something that, you know, I was relying on. It was just, I was doing it to keep my foot in the door with Baker Hunt and the campus and the students, and just, you know, doing what I could for the community to teach and get, you know, have a little bit more social interaction with folks that are not in my day-to-day sphere, or, you know, people that I interact with online or whatever. And I was, you know, when I started doing it, it was more like, oh, this is good financially. Like, I had the time to do it. It was a good, consistent, okay, I'm going to show up. I was doing the 6-week or 8-week class at that time, and I was doing the advanced students, and it was like, okay, like, this is fun. And I did get some good value out of it because I think I started doing my Sgraffito work there. I had the flexibility to experiment and try different forms and different techniques that I wouldn't have done myself, but because I was teaching others, it allowed me to loosen up what I spend my time doing in the studio. And like I make flasks here and there, and I made my first flasks in there and doing the texture and stuff like that. So like, and I found myself doing that at Isaac's when I was in his studio. I brought back like 7 flasks, and I'm like, I'm never going to do this in my own studio because I don't want to spend the time doing it and all that. But I think it's a good way to like get yourself out of your day-to-day and out of your studio practice, because my time is so calculated in my own studio that I don't want to take the risk of making something brand new and just like a play day. Like, that's not really in my repertoire these days. I don't have just a play day. I mean, I'm going to do something outside the studio otherwise, right, but I'm not going to play in the studio. Like, that time needs to be used wisely at this point in my business. So that's kind of how I think about teaching it. Like, there's good trajectory there with money and feeling a sense of community with wherever you're at, which you can have a hand in to an extent depending on what you're doing in that space, in that studio. But a lot of it is like, you don't really have control of the students that are coming to you. You know, you're kind of there to fulfill, you know, the expectations of what curriculum the studio wants and what offerings they want, and you're kind of just the teacher to do that. For me, that's the way I kind of felt about it. Not that I didn't have flexibility to suggest ideas that I was passionate about and teach things that I was passionate about, because I did teach about, like, doing Etsy and doing Instagram and different lessons like that. I was doing some of that during COVID that was more virtual. And I think nowadays when I'm teaching virtually with like Zipporah, or I'm doing the bookkeeping workshop, or, we're going to come upon and I'm going to be teaching more about the soda firing, like, these are things that are like uniquely myself and what I'm passionate about. And it's something that I can help my peers with and give them an experience that I like just really enjoy to my core talking about. Yeah. So like, and I can do that for myself. Like I don't need the studio necessarily to do that, to do those teachings exactly. Like I don't need the wheels or whatever, But that's kind of like how I think about it.
Yeah. That was well said.
How do you feel about the workshops and stuff these days that you're doing? Are they like more your speed? Like you get to choose what you want to do and how you want to do it? I love
teaching to people that can't talk back to me. That's what I love.
They can't talk back to you because essentially everybody's muted.
Yeah,
besides
and I'm not
yourself.
talking about like people like heckling me or anything like that. I'm just saying that I like explaining when I'm explaining and not having to like have some human being be like, I'm sorry, could you explain the first step again when I'm at the step 10? Like, I love just being able to go through what I need to go through, and that is it. And if you want to rewatch it later, you can. Like,
that's the beauty of the online teaching these days, that it's recorded and they can watch it and go as whatever pace they want.
Yeah. So I think that's great. I probably need to do one myself. I haven't gotten around to it, but whatever, that'd be a great passive income situation.
That's the beauty. There's plenty of options, right? You build an audience and then you can decide what works for you, whether you want to collaborate or you want to, do a, like the ceramic con that they had a year or two ago with the virtual kind of like summit or like conference sort of thing. And then you've got, teaching at conferences, like, that's on the table. Us talking at NCECA, those options, or demoing at NCECA, like that's a different option too, that the people that are there are really interested because they have many other options of what they can go to, but they choose to watch you and talk to you. So
I keep thinking keep thinking in my brain, like, it wouldn't even be that hard. Like if I just made a video every single day and put it up on YouTube, explaining how to do different things, I could probably actually get a YouTube following and like make money. And it just seems like,
how long would it take, and are you willing to do it for, are you willing to do a video weekly for
like I think you'd
year?
have to do a video daily.
What kind of video? Like a short video? Like the shorts?
Like 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, that would just be like a regular YouTube video though, probably. But you'd have enough content that you could teach for 3 to 5 minutes every day for, let's say, 3 months. Know. You have 90 pieces of content. And is that sustainable for you to keep up with? Yeah, that's why I think you start with, I can do one video per week. Yeah. Commit to one video per week. And because for me, like,
I'm not committing to any, just to be clear, I'm not committing to anything.
No, no, I'm not saying that's how I think through, like, taking that risk of how much do I want this? Like, that's the end goal, is to make money on YouTube. Okay, what's it going to take for me to get there? How do I make a video? How do I film it? what titles and thumbnails. How do I make a thumbnail? What titles are interesting? Like, do I care if people watch it? Am I okay if I put all this work into making 3 videos over 3 weeks and nobody watches it, or 12 people watch it? Is that okay?
I can make a video of me throwing a billion pots and then accidentally dropping them on the ground. I have no
Who would
idea.
do that?
Some idiot.
You could probably gain a pretty good following
Probably.
from that. Engagement would be off the charts.
Insane. Anyway, yeah, no, and I could take all my old videos too from like TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah. Well, some of that's probably going to be limiting, right? Like, they don't want you. Oh my gosh, Autumn, why are you so annoying? They don't want you like putting you're probably expected to film it in that format. You'd have to just be willing to, hey, I'm not going to get as much reach because I'm not filming it and putting it up in the format in which they prioritize.
You mean like sideways format instead of long ways?
Yeah, and they probably don't want watermarks.
You can take the watermarks
on there,
out.
and
You can get videos without watermarks.
oh, like the ones that you've already uploaded, and you can remove the watermarks?
It's through like a third-party thing.
With a third-party service? And you don't think YouTube would recognize that you used a third party to do that behind the scenes?
Because then you could edit it and like do stuff over it and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. It's just YouTube is just such a
Autumn is going crazy in the back.
it's just like, it is essentially starting from zero, you know? Or like, what would be, well, the trial for that could be, do I want to put, you could go back to TikTok and putting a little, like adding little videos on TikTok, and you're testing out consistently putting content up of teaching something. I mean, you don't even have to go to TikTok. You can do that on Instagram. Putting little snippets of content up. You could do it in subscribers if you want, or you can just do it in your regular feed or whatever. You wouldn't have to change the filming portion. Or you can talk to people that have done YouTube and how much work and how much money you could actually expect.
I know somebody that has, let me see how many subscribers they have right now. And she's just got monetized by YouTube, and she got $3,000 the first month.
I would suspect there's just so much video editing involved in YouTube.
Well, you can do easy edits,
And like all the SEO kind of stuff with tagging and all that stuff.
She has 469,000 subscribers.
What does she do?
Pottery.
What is her?
But
she does pottery?
Teaching. She's doing short form videos.
Wait, is this somebody that we know?
Yeah.
We both know? I feel like I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Do I know who you know? I know, and we both know that.
Yes.
I know who you're talking about? Okay.
But I mean, like, she's actually doing like handles and stuff. Like, she's doing actual pottery on the YouTubes.
It is a very niche audience for that, I would suspect.
No, I don't think on YouTube. I don't think it is, actually. So
I'm talking about the type of video that we're talking about.
I know, but like these are just making pots, like making a vase on the wheel. Like, these are not a niche video. That's what I'm saying. These are just regular videos.
So just copy and paste and do what she's doing then.
Oh no. How do I like make... There we go. I'm trying to see. Good Lord. Good Lord, the ads. The ads. I mean, this is just a regular fucking video. So... But anyway, moving on. I feel like it's like
I had a
constant
question.
yo-yo between YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
YouTube, yeah, I mean, there's, yeah, I mean, I think there's different ways that you can succeed in all of them, right? You just got to find that cross section of what you're
Yeah.
doing. If you're happy doing it, if you're willing to continue it, like obviously one of the people we've mentioned that we haven't even mentioned, like you can figure out what works in a week or two. And if you find that thing and it gets attention, you can just go with it.
Yeah.
And this isn't even risk related, but it's you can figure out what works. But yeah, like how does it factor in? Like I would guess most of what you're using Instagram, TikTok, YouTube is for us would be so that you can make more money, so you can support your business, right? You're doing it so that it helps diversify your income so that you're not, but where you're spending that time, like it is a risk to spend that time to figure out that new avenue. Like let's say you go down the YouTube route, you're going to have to sacrifice some time that you could be spending doing things that you already know can make you money.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, I mean, you still have to sell the pottery, but like there's things that you do, like making the dominoes. You wouldn't be making dominoes. You would have to spend it with something new that you don't have a guarantee of financial return. In the short term, medium term, maybe it's a long term, but like, are you willing to go through the financial hit for a period of time, and can you afford to before it has that return on it, you know? I mean, kind of like the podcast in a sense, like, you know, we've been doing this for X amount of time and we didn't make anything recently until whenever, you know?
For sure. It felt like a very big risk to ask for money from somebody.
Yeah. And I mean, they came to us, so it was, I mean, for us, it was pretty low risk because we weren't really expecting it. They come to you with money and an offer or, you know, interest in talking about it. And then you've got to be like, okay, like, what do we think we're worth? You know, okay, what do we need to change or adjust to take on this new responsibility or this new commitment partnership, you know? And not like, okay, we got to do this ad and we got to like produce this Instagram content and we got to like publish this, we're going to promise to publish this video to YouTube with their call out. Like, you don't have to do all of these things to help make the deal work. You can just be like, okay, well, this is what we do and this is how we're going to piece by piece, here's what we can commit to.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be a huge change.
Yeah. Yes.
Alrighty. Any last words? Oh my gosh, we hit 2 hours.
It's been a minute. A long one.
A few minutes.
No last words. I feel like we've said all the words. It was good though. I feel like this was a good one. It's you know what? Yeah. I do have a last word. It's fucking amazing that we've been doing this for almost 5 years in August, and
what, for 5 years, the podcast?
That's just amazing in its own.
Is it 5 years? I thought it was 4 years.
We started in 2019. Years? It's gonna be 2024. So it is 2024.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
And
because it was right before
COVID.
Okay, August 2019.
That we find a new topic every single week. Like,
well, I mean, some of this stemmed from probably. I mean, I get influence from a lot of different things, but I was just thinking about this from some of what we were talking about with Isaac and Heidi, with deciding to do this full time or not, and then like financial stability and stuff like that, and then also listening to Lindsay and Dante on the Mud Pillars recently. They were talking about goal setting, and like she was talking a little bit about that time commitment and pulling time away for goals that you may have longer term, but you've got to sacrifice some of the time short term and medium term until you can like fulfill that long term goal that you have, so and I think balancing those risks is obviously part of that. What can you afford to do and what can't you? So yeah, a lot of these ideas just come up in the moment, but also there's little bits and pieces here. It's just like taking those and framing it in a specific way so that it's hopefully has some value to people and the way we're talking about it. So
for sure. Well, I gotta go check some dominoes and charge my phone.
All right. Sweet. Good luck. Hopefully they're all good. Hopefully you get that done before you leave.
Well, they have to be done before I leave, so I will get them done before I leave. Okay. Until the next game gets made. Later, Gator.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. This podcast is made possible through the contributions of all of our listeners who always ask us great questions, leave us reviews, and contact with us through social media. Thanks to all the fellow makers as well who take time to be interviewed and share about their lives and businesses.
And thank you to Ashley from Boldover Ceramics and Lindy from Lindy Garner Ceramics for their assistance on the Whale Talk Podcast Instagram. You are invaluable. Thank you to everybody.